Imagine this. You wake up one morning, the sun streaming through your curtains, and for a brief moment, everything feels perfect. The world is quiet, your mind is still, and you are content. But then, like a shadow creeping across the floor, a thought enters your mind. Am I happy? The question lingers, growing louder, more insistent. You try to push it away, but it clings to you like a second skin. You think about your life, your job, your relationships, your achievements. You've done everything you were supposed to do. You've followed the script. Work hard, chase success, build a life that looks good on paper. And yet, here you are, lying in bed, wondering why happiness feels so elusive. You get up, make coffee, and scroll through your phone. Social media greets you with a barrage of smiling faces, exotic vacations, and declarations of gratitude. Everyone seems to have it figured out. Everyone, it seems, is happy, except you. This is the paradox of our age. We live in a world that worships happiness, yet we are more miserable than ever. We are told that happiness is the ultimate goal, the pinnacle of human achievement. But the harder we chase it, the further it slips away. Why? Why does the pursuit of happiness so often lead to despair? Consider this. What if the very act of searching for happiness is what's making you miserable? What if happiness isn't something you can chase, capture, or achieve? What if it's not a destination at all, but something else entirely, something you've been misunderstanding all along? The question is unsettling, isn't it? It forces you to confront the possibility that everything you've been taught about happiness might be wrong. It challenges the foundation of your beliefs, your choices, your very identity. And yet, it's a question worth asking, because the answer might just change everything. Think about it. How much of your life is spent in pursuit of happiness? How many hours, days, years have you devoted to this quest? And how often have you actually felt the way you thought you would once you achieved it? The truth is, happiness is a slippery thing. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you grip, the more it slips through your fingers. And yet, we keep trying. We keep chasing. We keep believing that if we just work a little harder, earn a little more, or find the right person, we'll finally be happy. But what if this belief is the problem? What if the relentless pursuit of happiness is not the solution, but the source of our suffering? This is the great question we must confront. Why does the search for happiness so often lead to misery? And more importantly, what would happen if we stopped searching altogether? As you sit with these questions, you might feel a growing unease. You might feel the weight of your own expectations, the pressure to be happy, the fear of failing to achieve it. But stay with it. Stay with the discomfort. Because somewhere in this tension, in this paradox, lies the key to a deeper understanding, not just of happiness, but of life itself. And so we begin, not with answers, but with questions, not with certainty, but with curiosity. Because the journey we're about to embark on is not about finding happiness. It's about uncovering the truth about yourself, about the world, and about the nature of the human experience. Are you ready? The search for happiness is not a modern invention. It is as old as humanity itself, woven into the fabric of our existence. From the ancient Greeks to the Enlightenment thinkers, from Eastern philosophies to Western self-help gurus, the pursuit of happiness has been a central theme in the human story. But somewhere along the way, something went wrong. What began as a noble quest for meaning and fulfillment has devolved into a frantic, often futile chase. One that leaves us exhausted, disillusioned, and, ironically, deeply unhappy. To understand why this happens, we must first confront a hard truth. Happiness, as we've come to define it, is a mirage. It is not a fixed state, not a permanent destination. It is fleeting, ephemeral, and deeply subjective. And yet, we treat it as if it were a commodity, something we can acquire, accumulate, and possess. This fundamental misunderstanding is at the heart of our misery. Philosophers and psychologists have long grappled with this paradox. Arthur Schopenhauer, the 19th century German philosopher, argued that life is inherently marked by suffering. He believed that human desire is infinite and insatiable. We are always wanting more, always striving for something just out of reach. In his view, the pursuit of happiness is a cruel joke, a Sisyphean task that keeps us trapped in a cycle of longing and disappointment. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, offered a different but equally profound insight. He believed that the modern obsession with happiness is a symptom of a deeper spiritual crisis. In our relentless pursuit of pleasure and comfort, we have lost touch with the deeper, more meaningful aspects of life. The struggles, the challenges, the moments of profound transformation. Jung warned that by avoiding suffering, we also avoid growth. There is no coming to consciousness without pain, he wrote. Friedrich Nietzsche took this idea even further. He saw the pursuit of happiness as a form of escapism, a way of avoiding the hard truths of existence. Nietzsche believed that true fulfillment comes not from chasing happiness, but from embracing life in all its complexity, its joys and its sorrows, its triumphs and its tragedies. To live is to suffer, he wrote. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering. These thinkers, though separated by time and tradition, all point to the same fundamental truth. The search for happiness, as we commonly understand it, is rooted in a flawed understanding of human nature. We are not designed to be perpetually happy. We are designed to feel, to experience the full spectrum of human emotions, from joy to sorrow, from love to loss. And yet, modern society tells us otherwise. We are bombarded with messages that equate happiness with success, with wealth, with external validation. We are told that if we just buy the right product, achieve the right goal, or adopt the right mindset, we will finally be happy. But this is a lie, a seductive, dangerous lie that keeps us trapped in a cycle of endless striving. The psychological roots of this problem run deep. Cognitive biases, such as the hedonic treadmill, explain why we quickly adapt to new circumstances and return to a baseline level of happiness, no matter how much we achieve. Neurological research shows that our brains are wired to prioritize novelty and reward, making us perpetually dissatisfied with what we have. And cultural conditioning reinforces the idea that happiness is something we must earn, something we must deserve. But perhaps the most insidious aspect of this problem is the way it shapes our identity. When we define ourselves by our ability to achieve happiness, we set ourselves up for failure. We become prisoners of our own expectations, constantly measuring ourselves against an impossible standard. And when we inevitably fall short, we feel not just disappointment, but shame, a deep, pervasive sense that we are somehow broken, that we are not enough. This is the hidden problem. The search for happiness is not just making us miserable, it is eroding our sense of self. It is turning us into perpetual seekers, always looking for the next thing, the next experience, the next high. And in the process, we are losing sight of what it means to truly live. But there is hope. To break free from this cycle, we must first understand it. We must confront the forces, psychological, philosophical, and societal, that keep us trapped. And we must be willing to ask ourselves the hardest question of all. What if happiness is not the goal? What if there is something deeper, something more meaningful, waiting to be discovered? The journey ahead is not an easy one. It will require courage, curiosity, and a willingness to question everything you thought you knew. But if you are willing to take that first step, you might just find that the answer has been within you all along. The pursuit of happiness is not just a personal struggle. It is a cultural phenomenon, a collective obsession that shapes the very fabric of our society. And its consequences are far-reaching, often invisible, and deeply destructive. Consider this. In a world that glorifies happiness, what happens to those who don't feel it? What happens to the person who wakes up every morning with a heavy heart, who feels out of place in a society that demands constant positivity? They are told to just be happy, to think positive, to focus on the good. But these platitudes, though well-meaning, only deepen the divide. They create a culture of shame, where sadness is seen as a failure, where vulnerability is met with judgment, where authenticity is sacrificed at the altar of appearances. This is the first unseen consequence, the tyranny of positivity. In our quest for happiness, we have created a world where negative emotions are not just unwelcome, they are taboo. We suppress our pain, mask our struggles, and pretend that everything is fine. But this suppression comes at a cost. It fractures our sense of self, creating a disconnect between who we are and who we feel we should be. And it isolates us, cutting us off from the very connections that might help us heal. The second consequence is the commodification of happiness. In a capitalist society, happiness has become a product, something to be bought, sold, and consumed. Advertisers promise that the right car, the right vacation, the right skincare routine will make us happy. Social media influencers peddle curated versions of their lives, creating the illusion that happiness is just one purchase, one post, one lifestyle change away. But this commodification is a trap. It turns happiness into a transaction, reducing it to something external, something superficial. And it keeps us trapped in a cycle of consumption, always chasing the next thing, always coming up empty. The third consequence is the erosion of meaning. When happiness becomes the ultimate goal, everything else is reduced to a means to an end. Relationships become about what we can get, not what we can give. Work becomes about status and success, not purpose and contribution. Even leisure becomes a performance, a way to prove that we are living our best lives. But this transactional approach to life strips it of its depth, its richness, its meaning. It turns us into hollow versions of ourselves, always striving, never arriving. And then there is the most insidious consequence of all, the loss of presence. In our relentless pursuit of happiness, we are always looking ahead, always planning, always striving. We are so focused on the future that we forget to live in the present. We miss the small moments of joy, the quiet beauty of everyday life, the profound connections that happen in the here and now. We become so preoccupied with chasing happiness that we forget how to simply be. These consequences are not just personal, they are societal. They shape the way we interact with each other, the way we structure our institutions, the way we envision the future. They create a world that is increasingly fragmented, increasingly superficial, increasingly disconnected. And they leave us feeling empty, even as we achieve the very things we thought would make us happy. But here's the thing. These consequences are not inevitable. They are the result of a flawed understanding of happiness, a misunderstanding that we have the power to correct. To do so, we must first recognize the forces at play, the cultural narratives, the psychological traps, the societal pressures. And we must be willing to challenge them, to question the assumptions that underpin our pursuit of happiness. This is not an easy task. It requires us to confront uncomfortable truths, to sit with difficult emotions, to resist the pull of societal expectations. But it is also an opportunity to reclaim our humanity, to rediscover what it means to truly live. The journey ahead is not about finding happiness. It is about uncovering the deeper, more meaningful aspects of life that we have been overlooking. It is about learning to embrace the full spectrum of human experience, to find beauty in the messiness, to discover meaning in the struggle. And it starts with a simple but radical shift, the realization that happiness is not the goal. It is not something to be chased, but something to be experienced as a byproduct of a life well lived, a life rooted in authenticity, connection, and purpose. Are you ready to take that step? The realization that the pursuit of happiness is making us miserable is both liberating and terrifying. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that much of what we've been taught about success, about fulfillment, about life itself, is built on a foundation of illusions. But it also opens the door to a radical possibility. What if we stopped chasing happiness altogether? What if we rebelled against the cultural narratives, the societal pressures, the psychological traps that keep us trapped in this endless cycle? This rebellion is not about rejecting happiness. It is about redefining it. It is about shifting our focus from the external to the internal, from the future to the present, from the superficial to the profound. It is about reclaiming our humanity, our authenticity, our sense of meaning. The first step in this rebellion is to embrace discomfort. For too long, we have been taught to avoid pain, to seek comfort, to prioritize pleasure above all else. But this avoidance comes at a cost. It keeps us stuck in a narrow, shallow version of life, one that is devoid of depth, of growth, of transformation. To break free, we must learn to sit with discomfort, to lean into the hard things, to find meaning in the struggle. This is not easy. It requires courage, resilience, and a willingness to confront our fears. But it is also deeply empowering. When we stop running from discomfort, we discover that we are stronger than we thought, more capable than we imagined. We learn that pain is not something to be avoided, but something to be integrated, a part of the human experience that can teach us, shape us, and ultimately transform us. The second step is to reject the commodification of happiness. We live in a world that tells us happiness can be bought, sold, and consumed. But this is a lie. True happiness cannot be found in a product, a destination, or a lifestyle. It is not something external, something that can be acquired or achieved. It is something internal, something that arises from within. To break free from this commodification, we must learn to detach from the material, to find joy in the simple, the ordinary, the everyday. We must learn to value experiences over possessions, connections over status, presence over performance. This is not about renouncing the world, but about reorienting our relationship to it, about finding fulfillment in what we have, rather than constantly striving for more. The third step is to cultivate presence. In our relentless pursuit of happiness, we are always looking ahead, always planning, always striving. We are so focused on the future that we forget to live in the present. But the present moment is where life happens. It is where we find joy, connection, meaning. To cultivate presence, we must learn to slow down, to pay attention, to savor the small moments. We must learn to quiet the noise of our minds, to let go of our constant striving, to simply be. This is not about achieving some state of perfect mindfulness, but about finding moments of stillness, of clarity, of connection in the midst of our busy lives. The fourth step is to redefine success. In a world that equates success with wealth, status, and achievement, it is easy to lose sight of what truly matters. But success is not about external validation. It is about living in alignment with our values, our passions, our purpose. To redefine success, we must first clarify what matters most to us. What do we truly value? What brings us joy? What gives our life meaning? Once we have clarity on these questions, we can begin to make choices that align with our deepest selves, rather than the expectations of others. The fifth and final step is to embrace imperfection. The pursuit of happiness is often driven by a desire for perfection, for the perfect life, the perfect relationship, the perfect self. But perfection is an illusion. It is a standard that can never be met, a goal that can never be achieved. To break free from this illusion, we must learn to embrace our imperfections, to celebrate our flaws, to find beauty in the messiness of life. We must learn to let go of the need for control, to surrender to the unpredictability of existence, to find joy in the unexpected. This rebellion is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process. It requires constant vigilance, constant effort, constant self-reflection. But it is also deeply rewarding. It opens the door to a life that is richer, deeper, more meaningful than we ever thought possible. And it starts with a simple but radical shift, the decision to stop chasing happiness and to start living. Here it is, the final, most powerful realization. Happiness is not a destination. It is not a goal to be achieved, a prize to be won, or a state to be maintained. It is not something you can chase, capture, or control. Happiness is a byproduct. It is the natural result of living a life that is authentic, meaningful, and deeply connected to yourself, to others, and to the world around you. This realization is both simple and profound. It challenges everything we've been taught about happiness, everything we've been conditioned to believe. It forces us to let go of the illusion that happiness is something external, something that can be acquired or achieved. And it invites us to shift our focus from the pursuit of happiness to the cultivation of a life well lived. But what does it mean to live a life well lived? It means embracing the full spectrum of human experience, the joy and the sorrow, the love and the loss, the triumphs and the failures. It means finding meaning in the struggle, beauty in the messiness, and connection in the chaos. It means being present, being authentic, being alive. This is not an easy path. It requires courage, vulnerability, and a willingness to confront the hard truths of existence. It requires us to let go of our need for control, our desire for perfection, and our fear of discomfort. But it is also the most rewarding path, because it is the path to true fulfillment. Think about the happiest moments of your life. Were they the moments when you achieved a goal, acquired a possession, or received external validation? Or were they the moments when you felt deeply connected to yourself, to others, to the world around you? The moments when you were fully present, fully alive, fully yourself? Chances are, it was the latter, because true happiness is not about what you have or what you achieve. It is about how you live. It is about the quality of your relationships, the depth of your experiences, the authenticity of your being. This is the ultimate truth. Happiness is not something you find. It is something you create. It is the result of living a life that is aligned with your values, your passions, your purpose. It is the result of embracing the present moment, of cultivating gratitude, of finding meaning in the everyday. And here's the most beautiful part. You already have everything you need to create this kind of happiness. You don't need more money, more success, or more possessions. You don't need to change who you are or where you are. You just need to shift your perspective, to see the beauty in the ordinary, the meaning in the mundane, the joy in the journey. This shift is not about denying the challenges of life. It is about embracing them, about finding strength in the struggle, growth in the pain, and connection in the vulnerability. It is about recognizing that life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. And so, as you stand at the edge of this realization, I invite you to take a deep breath, to let go of the need for answers, the desire for certainty, the fear of the unknown, to embrace the uncertainty, the messiness, the beauty of existence. Because the truth is, you don't need to chase happiness. You don't need to search for it, strive for it, or sacrifice for it. You just need to live fully, authentically, deeply. And in doing so, you will find that happiness is not something you achieve. It is something you become. This is the ultimate truth. This is the final, most powerful realization, and it is yours to embrace.